In this short tutorial, I'll be showing you how to use Pydantic AI to create a movie recommendation agent. But first of all, let me just explain what's going on here. To access models, Pydantic AI has this thing called the Pydantic AI Gateway, where I could get an API key, and essentially that API key can be used for multiple models across OpenAI, Anthropic, etc. So I've just created a .env file in my project and specified what that key should be, and you could see loading the .env file into my environment variables. I've also installed Pydantic AI here, so if you're using UV or PEEP, that's fine. Just install Pydantic AI, and I'm also applying this. This is really just useful primarily because I'm using Jupyter Notebook, and it just ensures that since Pydantic AI uses an event loop behind the scenes, it doesn't interfere with Jupyter Notebook's event loop in the first place. So let's start from the very basics. How do we create a simple agent that returns movie recommendations? The first thing is to import the agent class here, and afterwards, once of course create a movie recommendation agent, and we then pass in the parameters. Now we've got the gateway, Anthropic, Claude, Sonnet. You could put GPT 5.0 or other models here as well. And here's the really important piece. You've got the instructions, and here I'm just saying here, world-class movie recommendation agent. You're giving a user preference. I need to recommend a movie ASAP. You could put whatever instructions you have here as like the system context of some sort. Now, how do I then recommend movies? In this case, I just run the synchronous one because I want to wait for the agent to load and give me the results, as opposed to asynchronously, where while the agent is on talking to the LLM to get results, I could be doing something else with the code. So here I just run that, and while that works, I'll explain something very quickly. You can see here, I'm using cursor, that I'm already seeing the type of this agent, and this non-comma string means that the agent does not accept any inputs and returns a string. So if I then do something like this here, so if I say print results, watch what happens. It prints the results. Let me do this output actually, so you can see the string, and there you go. You could see this string that contains various movies across multiple years, etc. Now this is useful, but how do we then build on this? So for example, instead of just putting out a string, what if I want a structured format to for the agents to output? This is where your Pydantics models come way handy, and I'll explain that shortly. Well, here's how I can use my Pydantic models here. So the first thing is we want to define the base model, which all models have to inherit from, and the field. And so I've got a class called recommended movie, which is a model, and I have three features of this movie class: the title of the movie, the short description of the movie, and the release year of the movie, essentially. Now, if I copy all of this out, I copy that to just before the, let me do this after here. Let's do that here. Perfect. So I've run that. Now watch what happens if I come here and then say output type equals to, say, a recommended movie. We can see that the signature of this agent changes. It accepts no input for now, and then outputs a recommended movie. And now what happens behind the scenes is when the LLM brings back the results, the Pydantic AI framework formats that result automatically for us in a Pydantic model. So let's look at what that looks like. So if I run this again, this will take a couple of minutes to run. Seconds actually. Let's look at that, and then format the output. Let's look at what the output looks like for us. There we go. We can see the title, the description, and the release year. And so I can now do things like print results the output dot year, for example. No, sorry, dot release year. I believe that's it. There you go, 2025. Now, Because this is a Pydantic model, we can do a number of very useful things like specifying if the year should maybe not be less than 2014, or what the ideal length should be, etc. in your Pydantic model. And what happens is your Pydantic AI framework will try to like respect that. All right, cool. So we've made progress with the output. Let's now think a little bit around how can we change these inputs to actually take into consideration the user's preferences. And again, it's the same principle. I've got a recommended movie. So now I imagine I want to have a user preference model class. That's what I'm going to do just now. Right, so I'm going to create a user preference class that takes the user's favorite genre, the length that user likes, and maybe a number that indicates how many years should the movie be recommended between. So the same process creates a user preference class extending the base model. I have my favorite genre as a string here, and I just give a description, the user's preferred movie genre. I have the ideal length that the user likes, and then I've got like the released within years. Again, a field that is an integer that these are all the user preferences. Now, what is interesting is I can then come to my agent here. Let me just run that so I have that there. I can come to my agent here, and I can then say instead of input type, it's called depth type. And what depth type really means is it's like a dependencies type. Like, what is this agent dependent on? So if I call this user preference, there we go. We can see that this agent takes in a user preference and then outputs a recommended movie. Now, given the fact that I've got this user preference, there are a couple of things that actually happens here, but I want to modify my prompts. So I want this prompt to be really dependent on what the user preference is. So to illustrate this, I will have two types of users that I'm going to create, and the two types of users will mimic various users. So say for example, I've got an action user preference, for example. And in this case, I'm just going to take the user preference. Let's look at what the preference accepts: a favorite genre, a length, and a released within years, right? Cool. So let's just do that quickly. So favorite genre, yeah. So let's just put this as action very quickly. Let's look at that. Is that copy? Yeah, perfect. Now I'm going to do the same thing for another kind of user. So I've got another user, say comedy user. Just name both of them to follow. So an action user and a comedy user, and I have both of their preferences. Now, instead of just saying give me action-based movies, I want to be able to build a simple function that takes a user preference and then outputs a almost like custom prompt that can go here. And to save time, I've already written one quickly for us here. Let me just copy that. Called build prompts that takes a user preference and then returns a custom one. And you can see this is really where the magic is happening. So you're a movie recommendation agent, and that because I can pass in the user, I just put what the user's preferences are, the favorite genre, the length, etc., etc. Okay, so I pass in the user's preferences and I just say, you know what, recommend exactly 3 movies unless the user says otherwise, right? So if I save this, then it simply means that here, when I want to run the results, let's call this will be action results. I can then pass the get prompts, build prompts, sorry. In this case, build prompts, and in it I can pass the action user, right? So here I build the prompts for the action user's results, and then I can also do for comedy results, basically the exact same thing, to be honest, copy and paste. Comedy user, and we can start to run this. So let's print them. So let's just say action movies, for example, and then let's print the action movies, action results, and then just under we can say comedy and bring that so you could see that. comedy movies, print comedy results. Okay, so let's look at this. So for action movies, we've got Nobody. I have no idea what this movie is, but it has to be action. And for comedy, I can see, okay, let me put outputs so I can get the exact model that I specified. Yeah, so comedy movies, I've got this Grand Budapest Hotel, which is interesting. Now, this is beautiful, and you can continue to like build on this and all of that. But the last thing I'd want to show you is how do you work with tools in this framework? Because tools are a very, very powerful way of almost like extending your LLM's functionality. In the next video, I'm going to explain how we can actually use tools to take this further.